supported the shift in start times. So having shared the feedback from the survey, I'll turn the presentation over to Amber Rideout, our Assistant Superintendent of Transportation, who will walk us through our current bell time schedule and some additional transportation options as well.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, Amber Rideout for the record. A few years ago, in the 22-23 school year, the district adopted a standardized bell schedule. The bell schedule applies to all comprehensive school sites. The standardized bell schedule decreased the driver vacancy rate by reducing the number of bus routes needed. Based on the 25-26 bell schedule and the student transportation guidelines, the district has allocated 1,501 bus routes, currently serving eligible CCSD students. This route count includes extra board, student travel for field trips and events, and our outlining drivers. In addition to the school start time survey, with consideration of shifting all school start times by 30 minutes, additional bell schedule scenarios will be presented. The scenarios include shifting bell start times and dismissal times, inverting high school and middle school start and dismissal times, adjustments to the elementary school start and dismissal times, inverting high school and elementary school start and dismissal times. Let's review the scenarios. This scenario involves uniformly shifting the current 3-tier bell schedule by 30 minutes. This scenario is cost neutral. Transportation, budgetary, and staffing needs would not be impacted. Thank you. This scenario involves shifting the current high school and middle school bell schedule by 30 minutes, inverting high school and middle school bell times, adjusting the elementary school bell time by 15 minutes, and remaining on Tier 3. This scenario has an incremental cost. For bus scenario B, the incremental cost requires 51 additional buses and bus drivers, a one-time cost to increase the bus fleet, an annual cost for staff and vehicle maintenance. Scenario C, this scenario involves shifting the current high school and middle school bell schedule by 30 minutes, inverting high school and middle school bell times, identifying elementary schools based on location to invert the second tier bell time, adjusting the elementary school bell time by 15 minutes and remaining on Tier 3. This scenario has an incremental cost. For bus scenario C, the incremental cost requires 56 additional buses and bus drivers, a one-time cost to increase the bus fleet, an annual cost for staffing and vehicle maintenance. Next scenario. This scenario involves shifting the current high school and middle school bell schedule by 30 minutes, inverting high school and middle school bell start times, adjusting the elementary school bell time by 30 minutes and remaining on Tier 3. This scenario has an incremental cost. For bus scenario D, the incremental cost requires 42 additional buses and bus drivers, a one-time cost to increase the bus fleet, an annual cost for staffing and vehicle maintenance. For scenario E, this scenario involves maintaining the current bell schedule, inverting high school and elementary school bell times. Middle school remains on Tier 2. Identifying elementary schools based on location to invert on the second tier of bell times. This scenario has an incremental cost. For bus scenario E, the incremental cost requires 52 additional buses and bus drivers, a one-time cost to increase the bus fleet, an annual cost for staffing and vehicle maintenance. This slide is a combination of the scenarios we discussed, and it details the overview of the scenarios and the incremental cost. It includes the inversions and tiers of bell times, the one-time cost, the increase to the bus fleet, the annual cost for staff and benefits and vehicle maintenance. I thank you for your time. This concludes our presentation, and we're open for questions.
Thank you so much. Questions from the trustees? Trustee Satori.
Thank you very much for the presentation. One question, you were mentioning that the start times are not uniform, but then you had kind of said that that in 22, 23 we had gone with that. Can you kind of clarify that a little bit? Because my question is, as far as the expectation for everyone following if we were to make this adjustment.
Thank you for your question, trustee. We typically have a couple of our magnet schools and some of our more specialized programs that might have a unique bell schedule. Many of them will maintain those schedules.
Okay, so that's not, schools that can select that by any means. It is for a specific programming or purpose that they are on a different schedule.
That is correct.
Okay. And then my other question was for our rural schools, what kind of accommodations are being, or considerations are being made for their circumstances or extra travel time and such? Or would they potentially have different circumstances or autonomy to keep theirs the same if desired?
We did not make a different scenario for the rural community. We do take those considerations for them now, so anything that may be unique to their community, we are already considering those things.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then finally, looking at the measures of like tardiness and attendance and some of those things. So we were looking at this for potentially next school year, correct? And then kind of what metrics are we going to be looking at or resurveying or such to see if this was a positive change?
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Satori. Yeah, to that, I think that's a smart way of looking at things. It's always great to start with the end in mind so that we can know what we're measuring ahead of time. And I think, yeah, some of those things would be some low-hanging fruit in terms of metrics to look at, like do we see a shift in academic performance, whether that's measured by grades or some of our standardized test scores or some of our interims, attendance, tardiness. Like I think those would be some pretty baseline things that we could look at to see if a shift in start times has a positive impact on students.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Straffigan.
So I really appreciate all of the options, and like it's very interesting to see. The real question, I think, we've been receiving a lot of feedback from the community. So not just looking at the survey, but really people weighing in because they know now it's a conversation. So I guess my first question is like, where's the funding coming from for this? If any of the other options were to be selected, then I'll have a follow-up.
Trustee Esparza-Straffigan, to that question. So I think in terms of the funding piece, obviously if we were to pick any of those options that are not cost neutral, that would either have to come through funding through the general fund, or we would have to solicit funds from another source if we were able to get something, let's say, from the state in addition, in terms of funding.
And then thank you for that response. I think that was one thing that people were really wanting to find out. And there's definitely a differential between the different options. My next question is for Ms. Rideout. Thank you so much. I think I asked this before. You've had the lowest vacancy rates for bus drivers. What is that? And then my follow-up part 2 to that is looking at the options to have 45 or 42 or 52 additional drivers. What is our rate of hire? Like, is that attainable?
Thank you for the question, trustee. I'm filled with emotion when I think about our driver vacancy. I've been with the department a really long time. And I remember when we had the 250 driver vacancy. I am humbled to share with the board that we are in single digits for our vacancy.
And you received the applause because you deserve it.
Thank you for that. It takes a team. The transportation team works very diligently, including weekends, to onboard and recruit. We have a great partnership with HR, so we're very fortunate for the staff that are committed to onboarding and recruitment. We're very fortunate.
and I know I want to allow time for my colleagues, but I really want to reiterate for anyone listening, the first person that the students see is if they're riding the bus, is the bus driver. So it really matters how they open their day. My part 2 question was about hiring rate. So do you mind responding to that one?
Sure. So we typically may deal with some fluidity when it comes to our onboarding and our hiring rate. We keep employees that are, applicants that are interested in our pipeline, and we like to have folks ready to go. So we are typically right now hiring monthly. We have our driver recruitment classes and our behind-the-wheel training. We do that on site at the transportation facility. Our employees are CDL certified, so we're able to create a schedule that works for us and partner with the DMV while we're doing that.
So you answered the question. It seems like if an option were to be considered because of adding hires, that we would have a plan in place to transition to be sure that we'd have enough for next year, if this were something to be considered.
Yes, we are eager to fill that number.
Trustee Barone?